welcome to another episode of Dress and Drinks, brought to you by the Costume Society of America. And thanks for coming to our webinar series, Conversations on Dress. And should you have any questions about CSA's digital content, please contact Conversations on Dress at costumesocietyamerica.com. And tonight's wonderful cocktail for the evening in both the alcoholic and non-alcoholic version is the Time Capsule Tonic. I'm really excited to introduce you to our guest speaker tonight. His name is Dr. David Trowbridge. He's the William T. Kemper Associate Research Professor of Digital and Public Humanities at the University of Missouri in Kansas City and creator of the groundbreaking Clio platform. So we're not looking at a collection tonight. We're looking at a collection of collections. Dr. Trowbridge has spent over a decade connecting people to history through immersive virtual tours, walking trails, and museum collections. So we're going to journey through the stories behind clothing and landmarks housed in Clio, including a virtual tour of Kansas City's Garment District Museum, digitally preserved even after its closure. So we'll learn how Clio can empower public historians to engage in broader audiences with narratives of fashion, culture, and identity to offer new ways to connect with history. So I'm so excited to welcome David Trowbridge to Dress and Drinks. Hi, David. How are you?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much. And congratulations, since you're in Kansas City, on the Chiefs win. I rarely follow football, but all of my family members do. So it's been impressed upon my mind.
Yeah, I mean, sports have a way of bringing people together. And, that's a start. When historians of the Civil War are saying we've got to come together now more than ever, anything that does that in a little way. And, my job as a scholar and as a historian is to understand things and explain them to other people. But sometimes with sport, you really just can't do that. You can't understand it. You can't explain it. All you can do is jump up and cheer and high five a stranger. So
Enjoy the moment. So awesome. Well, so David, please tell us a little about yourself and Clio, and then we'll just dive right in, because I'm very excited to share this, to share the platform that you've built with our members. And I was introduced to this by two retired women who manage a collection in Long Beach, California, called the Howard Collection of Asian Dress. And they were like, it's so easy. We put it on our phones. I was like, okay, this has got to be really easy. If they're two wonderful people. And by the way, for those of you who are coming to LA in June, the Howard Museum will be one of the tours in combination with another event. So they're already on Clio. So go ahead, David, and tell us about why you started this and yourself and how this all came about.
So, I'm teaching my giant lecture class. I got 180 students, and this is 12 years ago. And it just hits me. I'm teaching them that history's an answer. It's way better than that. It's a process. But I'm giving my lecture. They're writing things down. They're going to give it right back to me, and or never. And I said, let's do something different. I want you to go forth and tell me the story of a place that matters to you, so you can see the journey and take me along with it. And we made a website, and we started having all these places that they were doing, and we had a map. And, I was showing it off to them, and they were kind of looking at it like, this should be a mobile app. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, your phone knows where you're at, Dr. Trowbridge. It could tell you the history of wherever you're at. And I did the exact same thing anybody else would do in that point. If they're thinking about trying to get their book finished so they can get tenure, that's a great idea. Somebody should do that. I just couldn't sleep afterwards. The way they looked at me, like, if you are who you say you are, you're not going to just ignore what we just told you. So I said, okay, let me try it out. You can fast forward 12 years. Here's what Clio looks like now. Here's my phone live. It'll be blurry for a second, and then it'll find us. So with the blue dot, it knows where you are. See the little thing that moves there? So it knows where you're facing. And all those red dots are historic landmarks. It works all over the country.
Nice. How did you get all of the information? How did you get people to put things onto it, or how did you first build it out? What was that all about?
Yeah, so I mean, it started as a local, right? And people started emailing me stuff to add, and I thought, this is not going to be sustainable. um, so I said, okay, let me make the platform so that any instructor can add stuff with their students, like I did, and it'll be vetted by the instructor, but it'll have the student's name and the student's name first, but also then that it was part of this class, and it creates this mutual self-interest where the student and I have the same mission.
Right.
They get this good, right? At first, it's for a grade for them. By the end of the class, it's not. They're not even thinking about grades. It's they want to get this right, and they continue to work on it. I end up learning a lot, um, and it compels me to teach the way I know I'm supposed to,
Nice.
which is you and me together. We're going to explore and we're going to do history together. We're going to learn together. And my last meeting with them, I tell them, this is really good. I'm proud of you. You got a run-on sentence here. We got to fix that. Uh, you know, and I love it when they come back and say, I really can't finish this because the second person I interviewed told me something different from the third. And I was like, if I had a cap and gown, I'd give it to you right now. That's 95% of what I can teach you. That all we ever have is a thesis to be tested by more evidence and more perspectives. And by the way, were you unsure when you started this? Oh no, I went on Reddit and I found one article and I thought that was it. So that's been kind of how it's grown.
Yeah. History is known. What do you mean? Exactly. How do you want to proceed? Do you want to walk us through some Clio stuff?
I
Do you want to
can
show
do
some
that.
slides? Where do you want to go from here?
I will share my screen, and it's kind of visual.
We're a visual group of people, and so you're in good hands here.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of abstract without that. It's like, okay, it's a digital overlay for, how's that work? So, and by the way, so after I did this with instructors, and then I had museums and libraries and organizations, they wanted to play too. And I said, okay, well, let me make a special kind of account for you guys where it says this was made by the Johnson County Library, Johnson County Museum, so they get credit. And then they can make walking tours that tell the story of their town. I've gotten some grants using this, but what I'm most proud of is there's over 100 organizations and people that have gotten grants using the platform that I made that is completely free. So they get a $10,000, $5,000 grant. I mean, that's not even going to touch creating or sustaining the platform. You can call up any of the commercial vendors; they're going to laugh. But what if it costs nothing? And what if it worked all over the country? Anyway, that's what we made. So Clio was the ancient muse of history. We called it that because if you can remember, about 12 years ago, everything tech had to have 4 letters and 2 vowels. Like Hulu and all those other. Right?
Really? It's funny.
Yeah. So Clio's the ancient muse of history, so it's perfect. I said, if Clio is with us today, how would she reach us? And like it or not, it's where we are. But if you care about people, you go where they are. And your phone knows where you are, so it kind of made sense. So it was pretty clunky when I started it. Now, if I work with developers now, if I tried to fix it, I'd break it. So there's nearly 40,000 landmarks
Wow.
by over 2,000 organizations. And again, it credits them, and then there's links to more information. Here's a book, here's a website, here's a video, here's whatever. My guiding principle is, what if librarians ruled the world? What would our phones do? And they would credit the people who are out there doing the work.
Yep.
That actually aligns with my self-interest because it says who made it. I don't want the email. We've got over 1 million people using this thing. I don't want the email. You didn't cite me. Don't have that. But what ends up happening, though, is the people who know a lot about your topic that you wrote about find you, which is a good thing. Because there's only like 4 or 5 other people in the world who have a working microfilm reader behind them.
No, you're just showing off, David.
Yeah. So it's like you can find your people this way. So anyway, so that's the idea. So these images here, we made history tours, and then art people wanted to do it, and I said that's cool. So now you can walk through the sculpture garden and learn the story. So here in Kansas City, as you might imagine, that's a giant shuttlecock, about 17 foot tall, in front of our art museum. It's now a symbol of our city. Well, When it was first installed about 30 years ago, you might imagine there were some strong feelings.
Oh, I'm sure.
You walk, you get that story, and then you walk and you get the next story. We love going for walks anyway, so why not give ourselves, a soundtrack for that? This is what I'm working on right now. This is our airport. We have a 1% for art program. So for every, $100 million we built on the new terminal, there had to be $1 million spent on art.
Wow.
So it's an art museum with arrivals and departures. So we're using, you can take a walking tour, and about half of these you can hear the artist. We're working on the rest. You can follow this route, but you don't have to. You can just turn on geofencing, set notifications to like 20 meters, put in your earbuds, go for a walk through the airport. Every time you get near the art, you'll hear the story behind it. A lot of times you'll hear the artist. The website is theclio.com because Clio.com was already taken. It's legal software if you need that. I hear they're good. And then there's a free app on Android and Apple. If you enjoy this thing, if you see value in it, one of the things that's really helpful is if you review the app, because nobody does unless they're mad. So that's kind of helpful. There's no reason. All reviews are fake, right? There's no reason 100,000 people love their bank app. I mean, that's just.
Right.
So
Right.
anyway, that's something anyone who's a creator in this world will tell you, oh my gosh, that's the most helpful thing you can do to help somebody. But that's the idea. So curiosity meets expertise. Stories are sticky when they're connected to place. So here, this young man, a former student of mine, is at a statue. And if you put up a bunch of signage that explained exactly what it is, it wrecked the aesthetic. But he's learning about this. This is Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black history. And then afterwards, click a button. Here's one of his books. It's virtually transported to the library to learn even more. Curiosity meets expertise, and curiosity is probably one of our best weapons right now. Um,
Indeed.
it's that simple. It's the danger is being so sure
Hmm.
instead of being curious. I've never met a curious fascist. It's, oh, tell me more about that. You know, uh, you wrote your dissertation on pockets. Okay. Wouldn't you just love, like,
Yes, it's
I'm
true.
curious about that. At least if I'm 30 seconds worth of curious, don't, um,
Your elevator
yes.
buckets.
Yeah, so you can make walking tours and trails. We made, so this is what we did. We walked around and we got the people that knew the stories and we recorded them. And so you can walk through our town and you can hear the story behind them. This is a civil rights sit-in that she's at, the site of one. There's no marker, there's no monument. We found the sit-in on reel to reel, digitized it, embedded it there, and then found two people that were there. One was a civil rights protester, another one worked there waiting tables.
Wow.
You
It's awesome.
Great. Yeah. So there's 1,700 walking tours and trails, all made by different organizations, using the hook of what is here or what was here.
Mhm.
Or I'm going to get to fashion history. It's um,
Yeah,
there's
this is really
plenty of.
there's so many things in our spaces that, as we talked before we started, this conversation today, there's so much interconnectivity between, fashion and place and space and people.
Yeah, and you got to start with the curiosity, the big thing, before you get to the thing that you really want to tell about.
Mhm.
Um, so for example, if you were working on a Clio entry for a museum, you really want to tell them the story of the fashion collection. You got to do the whole museum first, give them what they wanted, but then there's no reason not to include that thing because they're going to love that too.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, we've added geofencing. Geofencing, like when I leave my house, my heater turns off to save me, to save the environment and save me some money. Again, what if libraries ruled the world? Well, we could have geofenced based experiences.
Mhm.
Um, so my family has been part of this journey. This is our walking tour feature with. Do you remember? This is about 2019. Do you remember back then when you like would walk out of a subway, you would have to, when you open Google Maps, you have to go the wrong way and see the blue dot go the wrong way, and then you knew which way to. I said, well, let's add an arrow. Now Google does that, but we beat them. In fairness, we used their platform, so bit of a head start thanks to them. But this was our first test case. We were at Disney, and we got tired of going the wrong way, and I made a tour for our next day, handed the phone to our kids, and they navigated Walt Disney like they lived there, because it just said, okay, 0.09 miles this way to the teacups, and you really can't screw it up. So they're older now. Here they are, and this is the World War One museum, Liberty Memorial, and there's all this art. It's beautiful, 100-year-old. It's a treasure. Again, if you put signs everywhere, it would ruin the aesthetic. But now we just make it where we can walk around the plaza and hear the stories. The audio is really powerful. We're adding some new options, including language options, so you can have this in multiple languages.
Nice. Did you do that? Did you actually have to? Does it in these days? Does Google Translate just translate it all for you, or did you actually have translators work on
Yeah, so we're still building it. We just got the grant to do it, but we put together a pretty good estimate. We feel pretty confident. So it's going to be a system where it's an if this then that.
Mm-hmm.
Original audio, then prompted, would you like this in English, Spanish, and French? That's all we got.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you want a different language, then it's Google Translate.
Right.
With the, and anyone who's used Google Translate will know this may or may not be accurate. And then since Clio is free for everyone, nonprofit, and loses money every day, we're going to have a counter on that, so we never go over use where I get a big bill. So I doubt it'll be an issue, but good problem to have later down the road. And we're also adding where you can have in your walking tours and trails, you're going to be able to have an A track, sort of a overall track, and then it will pause when you get near any of the pins, the landmarks. And so you can imagine you're doing a fashion history of New York.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You want to hear about the places, of course. This used to be a garment factory. This was this is, but like, what do you get between now and then? You don't want dead air. So you can get the overall history of fashion, New York, interesting asides. Feels like you're walking with,
your own private docent, essentially.
Yeah. Oh, the geofencing has been really cool because we can make it to where, so you can take a walking tour and follow a route. Okay, I don't want to do that because that means I got to drive my car somewhere, park, and I was at a conference recently. I was gonna do a walking tour, but I never had time. But I did go to lunch. So just turn on geofencing, select 50 meters, walk where you were already going. You're gonna hear 4 stories between your hotel and your restaurant. I guarantee it. So that's it. Because history's got. There's no long-term learning without joy, and so you got to make this fun. Let's see. Oh yeah. So we had this pandemic. And museum said, love what you're doing, but we're closed, and that's a problem. Can we make immersive virtual tours? And I said, I've been thinking about this, because when you get to my age, with your spouse or whoever, you tend to look at houses you can't afford, and if you've ever seen those Matterport tours, those 360s, and I was like, well, this would be really cool if you could embed video inside of them. So that's what we did. We made the immersive 360, and you can embed little videos. Everywhere you see one of these little blue dots, there's a video. So here's a science exhibit, and it's this person's life's work, and you can hear his voice telling you the stories. And then this is the Truman Museum, the Truman Presidential Library Museum. You get a little map. You click anywhere here, and it will take you right to that spot. And then whenever you see a video, that's me during the pandemic. I got my mask on. He had his, I promise. Took it off for half a second, recorded the video, masked back up, and we made it. We basically we opened the museum.
Wow, that's amazing.
So logistically, how does this work? There is no staff at Clio, so when a museum, library, etc. signs up, I just ask, please use your official email address. I'm not able to find your Yahoo and verify it's you. you're going to be able to create stuff under the name of your museum or your library or your whatever. And you're off and running. It'll say the author's name. And so if you're working as a team, everyone will have their name as the author. They can see exactly what they're working on, and they can see it progress from active, submitted for review, saved as draft, deleted. This is internal. They can see what everybody's working on. When they're ready, they hit the green button. It goes live.
Nice.
So you don't have to. There's no onboarding. There's no. I've got tons of videos and guides. I wish people used them, but ultimately, if you need a guide to use a digital product, that digital product ain't made right. So,
Right. Essentially, this is what you're saying is anyone can essentially create a video or images and upload some content pretty simply.
yep, yep. And I mean, this was kind of cool. I just found this on Twitter. There used to be a site called Twitter. It was cool, but um, I saw it on Twitter a few years ago, and I was like, oh, that's a Clio emblem. And then sure enough, I was like, yep, they used my app to make it. That's kind of, to me, the beauty of it. Like, I didn't have to be part of all of this, and they got a grant and they got to do all this. It's a cool civil rights tour. So, all right, as promised, some examples of how people have used this for fashion history. And this is just our part of Missouri here, each one of these. Historical markers. If you go to the historical marker database and put in different words for things you study, I promise you there's at least 100.
Wow.
These markers are part of New York City's fashion walking tour. So I guess that one's outside of that. Would be amazing because you could put in earbuds and walk around. I love that these are on the cement. I love it. There's no reason not that we live in a world of pluses. It's not that that's a wrong answer. I know walking through the streets of New York while stopping and looking at the ground will probably get you run over. So, it'd be kind of cool to have audio as an option. We have a TWA museum.
You do? How fantastic.
Completely run by TWA employees. So they're getting up there. And this is part of the TWA museum. This is here in the bottom left. These are flight attendant uniforms over the years.
All TWA flight attendant uniform.
All TWA flight attendants. And then I went there and I recorded the people that worked there. These were maintenance folks. This was the woman who runs it was a flight attendant, and I recorded her. And she tells the story of, well, those women, they really fought for our rights, and I'm glad they did. You see, when I signed up, me and the other stewardesses, me and the other stews, we all signed a thing that said we said once we became 25, we understood the job was over. And not only that, if I got pregnant, married, or gained weight, the job is over. And then you can hear in her voice, I worked there for 42 years. Right?
Nice.
You feel that.
Yeah.
And then she goes on and she talks about the job and the adventure. There's at least 3 times she says, our uniforms are always the best.
Well, there is actually a very long history of couture designers designing airline uniforms. It's really quite amazing.
And so, so the Clio entry for the TWA museum does the whole museum, right? It'd be weird if it only talked about uniforms.
Yeah.
About airplanes. If you care about the public, you give them the whole story. But that could be an entry point for a lot of people who said, I never thought of that. I never thought about whatever. This is a public art installation that I think almost nobody's ever seen because it's hidden in public like all public art. And it shares the story of the garment district of Kansas City. And we even had, between 2002 and 2024, a museum. So right before it closed, I went there. 2 days before it closed. I don't have $14 million to save the building, but I got a camera. And in 2 days, we made this. Really preserving the museum. And everywhere you see a blue dot, there's a video. So here's the map of it. Here's the map of the garment district and a video. And all I did was I took my camera, put it on this thing. This is a gimbal, so it makes it smooth coverage. And I did a slow motion walkthrough, a fly through of the museum 2 days before they closed it down. Use that as B-roll footage so that you hear her talking about the history of the garment district for 15 minutes. But it's not just one person on camera the whole time. It's eye candy to keep you intrigued and interested. And so um, I've done this for at least 20 museums, and whatever they pay me, I accept, and I donate that back to Clio. And that's how we've preserved it, along with the occasional $15 donation online, which sustains my heart because it means what I'm doing has value to other people. So let me stop my.
That's amazing. So, uh, you're a grip as well as an historian. You have a career in the film industry coming up soon, I'm sure. Um, so tell me about like filming in the garment industry museum. Like you said, it took you 2 days. Did you only use the camera, or did you use like a drone to fly through things of that nature? And how did you decide where you were going to rest and choose which things you wanted to, you know, put the blue dot on to tell the story later?
Just made it up as we went.
Nice.
So I mean, I do workshops showing creative folks how to use audio, video, and editing and everything like that. And I said, look, my whole goal is to get you to go out there and make your worst video you've ever made. Because for once you stop talking about it, you tried it out, you learned. There is no, I mean, you can watch YouTube videos and things as you learn, but you got to go out there and start trying. So we just did it. We
Yeah.
just did it, and I learned what I should have done better. But we got it done in 2 days before they closed the place down. And again, lessons learned along the way of like the B-roll footage and the slow motion thing.
Right.
Um, what if I wouldn't have done that? It'd be fine, right? We'd have a few less views.
Yeah.
We would have still digitally preserved it, which was the point.
Right.
Now we can actually reuse all of this and do it, use it in different things because it's gone.
Yeah. So, what happened to the museum? You said it closed. Was it because of finances? What happened to the collection? Do you know?
So the collection is now in storage for the museum, so it's not been lost. Um, but like all small museums like this, it was a passion project of two people that are now no longer with us or not able to do it. And when that happens, we know what happens. Um, it's like most museums, it's going to lose money.
Right.
But ultimately, it came down to the building owner decided.
Mm,
And I've never owned a building. I got to imagine it's pretty tough to say, you know what? No, let's not make more money,
right.
keep a small museum in there. But, there is just something about
What's in the building now?
businesses.
Mm.
This is what was in there. I mean, this was a very small museum, but if you do the virtual tour, you can see the little cash box. There's a ton of money in it. There's probably $150 in it where they normally get about $5 a day. Why? Because it was closing down, right? There's people come together.
Yeah.
Um, when you're losing something is when you see some value in it. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, we did what we could and we preserved it. And there is an opportunity again, if you can add a little bit of the fashion history within museums that have that. Just make sure if you care about people, you go where they are. So you don't try to do a bait and switch sort of thing of haha, you clicked on the Johnson County Museum and all you're ever going to hear about is this thing that to you is obscure, but to me is my life. Um, it's give them the full story. The walking tours have been popular because we make them on like parks and trails where people are already walking.
Hmm.
And, there's going to be enough landmarks to talk about. You're coming up on this. This used to be, this used to be this. But inevitably, you're going to have to tell people, okay, up here, you're going to be turning left. You're heading south now, which is always useful. Our city expanded south in the 1920s when this park was being created. Okay, from there, I can go about anywhere. I can talk about the Pendergast area in Kansas City. I could talk about the garment district, even though we're not there. One of the fastest growing parts of our city was the garment district. Um, and everything has got a hook, right? I mean, so in Kansas City, it's Nellie Dawn, and
Mm,
which means I can go from mafia kidnapping senator, Kansas's most influential and wealthy woman, to garment district history.
yeah, all of
Oh,
it.
that's not unique. There's always a great pivot where you get and now the rest of the story sort of thing. That's the kind of the beauty of storytelling in this way.
Nice. So how does one, so you have art museums, do you have other organizations beyond that? I mean, I'm just thinking about Costume Society. We're a nonprofit organization that has a lot of other members from other organizations involved with it. Do you have, sort of umbrella organizations like that involved as well?
We've got some big organizations, small ones, national trust type places to little places. I mean, it's everywhere. The key is to start small and manageable.
Mhm.
Um, I've been on enough Zoom calls with organizations that we're going to create 1,000 entries, and they usually create zero.
Wow.
Um, Start by making one.
Start with one.
Yeah, that kind of like, oh, okay, that was easy. I learned something along the way. This will work, and we're not going to make 1,000. But we are going to figure out like what people would really really like and use and value.
Right. Right. And if somebody in the audience is wanting to start one for their collection or their organization or where they're at, do they need to sign up for an account? What is the best way for them to begin that
Yes.
process?
Organizations can go on to Clio. It's I mean I can show you, but everyone's signed up on a website before. You just go in the little box that says log in or sign up, and you sign up as your organization or as an individual. Now, individuals can make Clio entries. They end up in a review queue, which is me and a few other volunteers.
Hmm.
Just because we don't want it to be a wiki. It was a wiki at first, but now we get enough traffic that we're actually kind of if,
Going away from
links to their weird businesses. So we do we check. We do what we can. Um, it's not blind peer review. It's
that.
is this better than what was there before?
Yeah.
Is this true? Is this a good source? You know, is it objective third person? Because it's weird if it's you know uh, the mission of the Johnson County Historical Society is, you know, that's weird to see on anyone's website other than the Johnson County Historical Society.
Right.
If it's, you know, dating back to 1934, this museum has grown to include these collections. That's cool.
Right. So now you say that it's nationwide. Do you have any that are international? Do you have any outside of the US?
Yeah, we do. And that's one of those things where it's great. At the same time, we just got to say that think about the perspective of the audience and make sure that there's a good cluster so that it's, if there's 3 entries in Paris, that's worse than zero. You're gonna be like, wow, this is no good. So that's the kind of thing of like it takes kind of a good cluster and it takes kind of all kinds of entries. Um, so uh, I taught in Appalachia for years.
Hmm.
If, if people outside of Appalachia were making the entries, they would only be about poverty. And yeah, that's part of our story. First of all, it's our story to tell, and it's not the whole thing. So there's needs to be that authenticity. Would people who are using Clio be delighted to see this? Would people who live there say, yeah, that's pretty good? And so if you're going to do another country, all I ask is that it doesn't become, if you're doing this in Germany, let's not have every entry be about Nazis.
Yeah.
They're aware.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
uh,
so I'd love for you to show me start out with something if you could.
okay.
Cool. Okay. So So we've set up our account and we're in. Um,
Oh, say you wanted to create a new entry.
yeah.
Right. I'm already logged in. This is me. Hi, Clio. So yeah, that's so first thing you do is either put an address, GPS coordinates. Okay. Um, Now you can also put in latitude and longitude, or you can just play with a pen.
Oh, excellent.
You can zoom in, fine tune it. Say, that's not quite it. It'll put you right back. Said, okay, that looks pretty close. Next thing it's going to do, it's going to run up against the existing database to make sure there's not already an entry for the place you want to have. So if you wanted to create an entry for Plum Hall, named after the abolitionist Preston Plum, it would say, "Hey, good news. There's already one in here, but you can review and improve the existing one. You might be able to do that."
Right.
You say, "Nope, this blue dot is definitely not any of these." So, okay, you give it a title. This should be paragraph. The recipe is one paragraph. Give them the who, what, when, where, why, how. Right. Hit them with the basics. Pity the reader. Right. They're going to know. This historic house was constructed in 1927. Again, you can fine tune the location. It follows Google Street View. So you can just view super accurate and say, yep, this is it right here. All right.
Oh, wow, nice.
And then this is where you tell the rest of the story. So I use the same place for every demo, so I remember to go back and delete it. This is where I grew up. So
Excellent.
constructed in 1927, this was the home of Dr. David J. Trowbridge, uh, a mild-mannered historian who went on and committed horrific crimes in 2028. Whatever. Foreshadowing. Uh, uh, so anyway, right? The who, what, when, where, why. Why would they care? And if you can, start and end with a hook.
Right.
There's nothing easier than stopping reading. So start and end with a hook, and then you pick it back up. Now you can tell the story of Emporia, Kansas. You can tell the story of whatever, anything. And then here's where you put your sources. And if you want help, this will format them for you in Chicago. Just choose.
Oh.
I tried to eliminate the pain points because I'm a teacher.
I'm like, this is truly, you are an historian where you're like, no, 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 here's your citation helper.
Because I want to encourage people do what they're incentivized to do. So don't make it hard to do what you want. And so you can give every image a caption, a source. Man, people take pictures; they deserve credit. Then alt text for those that benefit from that. And then here's where you have your links, more information. You give those a caption so people actually click on them. They know click here for the Lyon County Historical Society exhibit on David Trowbridge. I'm not actually a narcissist, so there is no such thing, nor will there ever be. But there is a wonderful one on Mary White, William Allen White's daughter. And if when you're ready for a good cry, you can read William Allen White, the great journalist's obituary to his daughter, and that is at the Lyon County Historical Society. So anyway, so you're all ready. This is again not a good Clio entry. Certify this is my original research. Yep, and allow others to edit this entry. Unless it's something sacred to a native tribe, leave this on because this is telling me this is too short. But I'm the administrator, so I can bypass it. So live. This is in Clio now. If I go to Emporia, Kansas, it will be there. It's not one of the first 10, so let me just so that you can choose anywhere in town and say, oh, search here, search here. And it'll pop up. It'll be one of them. Yep, there it is.
There it goes. Oh, right.
Well, let me actually delete it.
Um, so so what have your users said to you about this? What do they love? What do they find frustrating? How do you respond to those sorts of things? And I mean, I've played around on it for a little bit, and it's amazing. I think it's really wonderful. And wherever I have been, I've been like, I wonder what's in Clio right now, just because I'm wanting to see what that is. Um, and it's been super helpful to be, oh, this historic site or this cool thing or this museum or whatever. It's really, I mean, in Los Angeles where I am, there's so much of
Yeah.
stuff, you know.
So it is hit and miss in places. One of the nice things is this project was growing until there were entries in a town. There was really no reason for people in that town to discover it, because
Mm,
I not only do I not have any money, if I had money, I wouldn't spend it on marketing. So it wasn't until the local historical society in Boise made 3 walking tours that anyone in Boise would have seen it.
right.
And they're like, oh, this is really cool. But there are places where we don't have very many entries. And then there are places, if you end up to be, yeah, camera phones are absolutely, camera phones suffices. This thing, I have so much good camera equipment. These things are so good, they make me mad. So,
And they're only getting better. I mean, like,
I'm done with my life. So yeah, you can use, and when I teach people to how to make videos, and edit, I try to explain the difference. A simple $10, $20 lavalier mic
lav mic.
next to someone when you're doing an oral history will beat a $300 microphone every day. The reason why, um, last week I attended a funeral for one of the last freedom riders of the original 13. There's only one left.
Wow.
Um, I met him. I recorded his story. The one who is still with us, his people sent me this. It's a hard drive that has his stories on it.
Wow.
It's incredible. They used a very, very good microphone. The challenge is it picked up everything.
Right.
So it's such a good microphone, you can hear people washing the dishes in the other room. So, it's one of those things. Equipment, don't sweat it. Go out and preserve this stuff, record the people while we can.
But, on that note, I mean, like, for example, so I'm in my department, I'm currently chair of my department, and yesterday a student worker was like, we want to do a TikTok video of you giving us a tour. And I was like, really? Okay. And they brought their little Bluetooth lav mic, and I just popped it on here, and we tested it out, and it's rechargeable. It was great. It just recorded immediately to the phone and to the video as we were doing it. It was like so easy, so super easy.
Yeah. And now TikTok's gonna go away. So yeah, that's how it's the end, right? But it is one of those things. Like, it is not that you can overthink this stuff, and you can say, well, we should plan and write grants, and you know, we all have.
Right. One of those.
You know what Mr. Keaton would have given for this technology that I keep in my pocket and it's got lint on it?
So tell me a couple questions. One, in the site, can you go back to your site? How do you add videos or images? I think
Oh,
drag and drop them, or
exactly as an attachment as anything else. I just, with 2,000 organizations and 10,000 creators, I can't get emails that say I can't figure out your site. So I went with the simplest, most basic. So here's one that has audio.
right?
If you go to improve this entry, it truly is just drag and drop to put the audio here. I could put a second audio clip here, just drag it right there, or click there and then go on your computer and find it. Exact same thing for images. For videos, they need to already exist on YouTube or one of the other usual platforms. You just hit that, give it a description, add the URL. It'll act like and look like it's native and embedded. It will actually be linked. That's important because all of this website works with the 2 mobile apps. We can compress text and images pretty well. Video files are huge. So it'll look like it's on the app, It's not native, which means when you download Clio, you're not actually downloading a large file when you're downloading the app. It'll work just like it's there.
That's fantastic. So you talked a little bit about how others have written grants based on using Clio. What have those been? Tell me about those.
And there's been everything. I find out about them way after the fact. So that civil rights tour is one. Let's see, I this feature, well, it just passed. The featured entry right now is Black Archives of
Mm,
America. I worked with them. We wrote a grant together, but it was their grant. They submitted it, so they got the indirect costs, and we hired young folks, high school students, to work um, some of the older folks that knew this history of the community. We
mhm.
made the 360, right? I can't resist. But you can actually learn the story of all these people. And so we give this now to school groups before they go. And instead of them walking around being like, this is Roy Wilkins. And they tell each other the story that they learned when they were playing on their phones or whatever. And we also made a walking tour for the community that is completely narrated as you go. And we had a little oral histories along the route. That's where you see those. So when you go past the Charlie Parker Memorial, which is this big green head, you hear.
Located next to the American Jazz Museum in Kansas City, Missouri, the Charlie Parker.
You hear Charlie Parker's music, and someone in the community talking about Charlie Parker.
Right.
And so that was one. And again, it was younger people and older people, and if you're older than me or my age, you remember when computers had C prompts. You literally had to code to get a computer to do anything. But I don't understand these newfangled computers. It's still what the people will say. The young folks and the old folks, they kind of need each other in that regard. Well, that was the coolest part of it.
So if you wanted to build a site or one entry, or I'm not quite sure what the lingo is you use, how long would it take you? If I wanted to say, I'm at LMU and I wanted to pop LMU on the map. Oh, I wonder if LMU's on the map. Can you Google LMU and see what it does?
LMU.
I'm just curious, since that's where I am right now. Um, you if I wanted to add that and be like, here's this and here's what they lot, blah blah blah. How
Yeah,
long?
for university, you want to add the buildings,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you can make a walking tour of the campus,
Hmm.
so that uh, as an example, do we have? Yeah, here's a campus walking tour.
Oh, perfect.
And again, you can follow this route, but no one will. Just turn on geofencing, walk around the campus where you're already going, and you hear the story of. Let me get my favorite one. This is the memorial fountain of Marshall University. If you've ever seen the movie We Are Marshall, it's the school lost their entire football team in a plane crash.
Mm.
Then they started the team up again. And it's a great sports movie because it's not about sports. There's no go get 'em boys halftime and they come back and win. They lose, they're freshmen. But they field the team. They take so this is a sacred site for people in this community. 75 people, right?
Right.
We found.
The memorial fountain was
This is one of my
dedicated on
students.
November 12, 1972.
Truly, architect and artist.
That's the dedication speech.
Oh, nice.
Walk there, hear the dedication speech, and see pictures like this. That's the dedication. If that doesn't cause goosebumps, I got nothing for you. And we've got things like nature trails. You walk along the path, you hear about the flora and fauna. For me, it's the moment when I heard this creek near my house, and I've walked there with my kids and everything like that. I don't think I've ever really seen the creek. I mean, it's there, but when they said, this creek connects to this other creek here in about 300 yards, and that creek that links to the Blue River at this point. From there, it goes on to the Missouri, the Mississippi, and the ocean. You are 6 degrees of separation from the ocean right now. I heard that. I saw the creek for the first time, really saw it. And then you know what I did? I picked up some trash. I don't do that normally. I wanted to be a better human.
Thank you for picking up trash.
It's
Exactly.
like, that's going to go in the ocean.
It's going to go right to the ocean. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All of that. That's amazing. So, we have about 5 or 6 minutes left. Are there any questions in the chat from
You have homework, so that's nice.
no? Oh, that's hilarious. This will be our homework before we arrive. Thanks, Mag. Okay, I see what I have to do now. I guess organizing wasn't enough. There actually are some
This is actually kind of joyous work. How long does it take to make an entry? If you already know something,
yeah,
I don't know, about an hour and a half to write it up.
yeah.
You already got it written up somewhere, and just kind of polish it and get rid of anything that was weird, that was like, okay, that's not going to make sense to somebody who doesn't already. I study this for a living, but if you didn't, um, oh, what would be interesting?
I'm going to have to check this out for LMU because my building on campus is designed by a relatively famous architect of the mid-century modern period, Edward Durrell Stone. He also designed the Kennedy Center as well as the American Embassy in New Delhi. And inside of it is a 2-story tapestry, one of the largest of the mid-century period in the world. And it's fantastic. It's in great need of conservation because it's been hanging in situ since when it was installed in 1967. But it was designed by an amazing California artist, also of the period, named Millard Sheets, who interestingly connects. He did a lot of mosaic work for banks in Southern California and a few in Northern California. So even when you drive around Los Angeles and Southern California, you'll see these amazing mosaics and statues and sculptures on the side of commercial buildings. And it was woven in Paris at Pinton Frere. So this textile, this hanging tapestry, has such a long, wonderful history. And because of its age and because so I've become this proponent on campus of having it conserved, and every time I use it in my classes, I teach my students about the history of this object, that they walk into the building every day because it hangs right in the lobby, and they're like, that's such a weird thing. And I was like, let me explain this to you. And then they're like, what? I was like, yeah. So this is what's going on in this tapestry, teaching them how to read art and understand what's going on within it. Not that it doesn't have its own problematic imagery within it because of its time period, but helping people to see it and understand it instead of just walking by it, because it's so big. How do you walk by this thing?
Yeah. Well, and that's authentic learning. If your first reaction is, oh, wow, that's so interesting, that's actually not generally what we do as humans. Go tell somebody. There's a whole podcast I recorded about the history of pockets. That's what. Well, then if you relate it to somebody of, oh, so you were in the military. Did you have a uniform where the pockets were sewn shut? Yeah. You ever thought about that? Or, so you used to work in a bar. Did you notice how at the end of at 2 a.m. when you're trying to get everybody in, there were all these people coming in because they lost their phones? Yeah. Were they all female? Yeah. Pockets.
It's all about pockets. About pockets. Excellent. David, thank you so much for this today. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know you these last few months as I was introduced to Clio and reaching out to you. And a big shout out to Cheryl Farnan, who also reached out to you and was like, hey, I'm in town and I'm your neighbor. So so thank you so much. And thank you for introducing us to this really wonderful adventure platform that you've created for us and for everyone in order for people to share their stories. It's really kind of fabulous and so user-friendly. So very happy to have met you and to have you here on D&D.
Wonderful. Thank you.
No, awesome. Everyone, thank you so much. This comes to the end of another episode of Dress and Drinks. And please thank David for sharing his work and this wonderful app. Please use it. Go out and add your collections, your museums, your sites, and do it so we can start. We all know in our organization that there are hidden collections all over the country. And please make sure to follow the Costume Society of America on Facebook and Instagram, all of our socials, so that way you can hear about our upcoming episodes. And lastly, if you enjoyed today's content, I implore you to make a small or very large donation to either CSA or to Clio to help keep these things continuing for all.